Hey everybody, welcome back to X's4 Podcast. This is the Daily X, where we bring you news, information, and discussions about your favorite Marvel comics, most notably the mutants. However, this time, there will be no mutants in discussion. Today we're going to be taking a look at Jed McKay's debut issue of his new take on Moon Knight. Now, Moon Knight's had a number of relaunches in the last few years, so it's not unusual to see Moon Knight popping back up, but this issue felt like an incredible entry point. It touched on a lot of the best bits of classic runs, recent runs, and the art was amazing. So we hope you guys enjoy it as much as we enjoyed making it. And if you guys did, don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe. And until next time, guys, enjoy this last segment. Keep those mutant lights lit, those Krakoan gateways open, and we'll see ya.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next segment of X's for Podcast. I am Rod.
I'm Nico, and you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at NicoAction. That's NicoAction.
Hey guys, I'm Drew. You can find me online on Twitter and Instagram at Siphper3. That's at DREWSIPHER3.
Hey, it's Nathan. You can find me online on Twitter and Instagram at DazzlerAOA.
And I'm John. You can find me at LostingPerco on Twitter, and glad to be here.
Moon Knight, has a new series. The writer is Jed McKay. The artist is Alessandro Cappuccio. The colorist is Rachelle Rosenberg. I love Moon Knight. I haven't read much of his comics, but I also love Jed McKay's writing. So I was like, I have to pick up this book either way. And plus, there's getting a Moon Knight series, so I'm sure we're preparing for that as well. Disney Plus, yay. But first, I want to say, what is everyone's experience with Moon Knight before we even go into this amazing first issue?
I'm a Moon Knight guy, sort of a Moon Nightingale, if you will. I'm kind of like a Moon Midnighter. I really enjoy the visualization of the character, and when you really go back and you kind of trace the origin of this fantastical visualization, you realize that pretty early on, he was just a fantastical visualization, which is unfortunate as shit, but over time, writer after writer kind of came in and said, he's too fucking cool looking not to love. So there's sort of a general sentiment that even though Moon Knight frequently is kind of, historically, was bogged down by a lot of kind of middling a character that didn't have a real home outside of looking really cool on all of the 80s posters because it was the 80s and Sienkiewicz was the shit. So I think what we found is, especially starting around kind of the new Avengers era, so like 2005-ish, people started to maybe pay attention to this very sellable visual, and they started to pump a little bit more energy into him. So even though I had read a bunch of Moon Knight growing up, because I was like, oh, this looks like the New Mutants art. Why isn't he ever joining why has he never shown up in the New Mutants? What the fuck is happening? So I read a bunch of Moon Knight for no reason, and then a bunch of Moon Knight for a good reason, because I was interested in seeing the character expand. And I feel like there were a number of runs in the last few years. I'd like to point out the Lemire run for being spectacular as well. There have been a number of runs that it's kind of interesting because we're not really pushing the works by those writers right now. And it's going to be interesting to see how Marvel deftly handles a number of creators that they're currently not really putting emphasis behind, having had several runs in a row. It's going to be really interesting. But, I love the character and I'm here for more.
Awesome. I like that. It was a very good intro for you, Nico. What about you, Drew? What is your experience with Moon Knight?
So I don't have too much experience with him. I love the look. I've read the Jeff Lemire, only the first arc, but I feel like I have a decent grasp on the character. I know what he's about, and I know he has DID and Khonshu and his Egyptian kind of connection. And I also fell in love with this character through the look and kind of what he represents as a character with dissociative identity disorder, which adds a interesting aspect to him instead of just making him a Batman dressed in white.
And just to touch on that, because Drew, I'm so glad you said something about his dissociative identity disorder, and I feel like that's what Aaron was exploring recently in the Age of Khonshu run, 35 through 37 of his Avengers. Now, not everybody is the biggest fan of it, like I am, but I really loved that arc because I thought it really did show what I thought was a very believable path to trying to take over the Marvel Universe. Somebody just being like, well, I want all the trinkets! And that I'm sorry, but that should fucking work because it always works for the good guys. And there's so many more bad guys. So no, I loved it. I believed it. I bought it. I was here for it. Yes. And I do think that that's what Aaron was exploring in many ways. So, Drew, thank you for bringing up something that I was foolish not to mention.
I do agree that I did love it. That's one of the things I think you should probably have to read before you read this first issue if you haven't, just to like understand why he's not like,
The lapdog of Khonshu.
yeah, the lapdog of Khonshu anymore. Like he's like his own thing now. Like he's made the religion his own, and his like he always said in this is his own purpose and everything. So you kind of get that from this first issue.
Yep.
But if you don't read the Avengers arc, I feel like you're kind of lost. You're like, well, why is he doing this?
So for me, like I didn't really have super lots of experience with Moon Knight. I had read the character in West Coast Avengers way back when he was being weird with Mockingbird and they went and killed the guy, and that was crazy. I would say I read a few issues of the last book. I really liked him. I probably picked him up not just because he like had a Dazzler album and was talking about it, but that's me. And the Age of Khonshu arc in Avengers was really the first thing that made me sort of sit up and take more notice of Moon Knight as a character being more than just a goofy kind of like oddball superhero who does weird things and you never can really tell. And I love how this first issue here really was able to conceptualize the story as a whole. And I was able to pick it up, not having the greatest Moon Knight knowledge, and understand what's going on.
I didn't read that Avengers arc, and I found that it was like fine to read. Like I got everything that was happening.
Giving you a preview, I first encountered Moon Knight when I did like a whole read of Civil War, which was very stupid, but I did that, and then I checked out that very famous run by the very uncool people. But yeah, which is
Sigh.
it's a really really good run anyway. But
Double sigh, yeah.
yeah, and absolutely fell in love with his design, the whole white suit, the whole "I want them to see me coming" thing, and then got deeper and deeper. And of course, my favorite run, and like probably my top 5 ever Marvel books, is the Jeff Lemire and Greg Smallwood run,
So
which I
good.
just reread last week for this episode. And yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Moon Knight has not appeared in any Marvel comics until this week. Not a big fan of what Aaron did. Well, also there was a small run between the Lemire run and Avengers, which was by Max Bemis, I'm not sure. And
The
which
worst
was-
X-Men guy, yeah.
Yeah.
and which was whatever. So it was a bit of a surprise to see Moon Knight back again, like in cahoots with Khonshu, because at the end of the Lemire run, he rejects Khonshu completely. So
Yeah.
you can sort of skip everything, which I did. I've just seen like pictures and posts and reviews. I have not read the issues of Avengers. So yeah, you can see how Mark has like he still sort of understand his role as the Fist of Khonshu, but not in Khonshu's grace, And yeah, that's my experience with Moon Knight. And yeah, I think he has one of the coolest designs in comics. And I like how he plays with like the DID, but most importantly, the whole like intersection of different religions and faiths. Like he's Jewish, but he's like the Messiah source of an Egyptian god. And you know that Egyptians and Jewish people in the Bible were not like friends. And yeah, I thought that's a very interesting character. And yeah, I'm very excited for the Disney Plus show. I think it's going to be great.
Speaking of the Disney Plus show, the fact that Oscar Isaacs also played Apocalypse, this guy can't get away from kind of slightly awkwardly appropriative Egyptian characters over in the Marvel Universe. It's just sort of like, thank goodness Oscar Isaacs is here to fix it, because Oscar Isaacs, just wave your hand and make it better.
I think he will play the role well. And I hope it takes like kind of a turn that this book is taking. Like obviously we have to get more of the intro because nobody knows who Moon Knight is outside of comics. So they can't go this straight route where it's just like, I'm the Fist of, Khonshu already. I feel like they're definitely gonna have to take more of a turn from the comics anyway, because a lot of people are gonna compare him to Batman, because even the way he like jumps down and gets villains, he's doing like the moon shape, which is, kind of like the bat shape. I like the moon shape better, honestly. Maybe I'm a little Marvel biased, but I feel like it fits better for the night because it's a moon and it just looks better and it looks cleaner. I don't know.
But there really is something about the cleanness of the design, and that's something I think in many ways we've seen Batman lean into the opposite of, as we've seen Moon Knight lean further into. One of the things that Batman constantly does is he gets new, even clunkier armor. And, that makes him about as aerodynamic as a falling plane. So I don't understand why he does this, right? But Moon Knight Knight over the years, I feel like there was a hot minute where Moon Knight was like fucking Pouch Man, and they've kind of said, well, hold on, sleek, designed smoothly, looks good. Let's get back to the sleekness of design. And the fact that he has this very business attire look, that's something that I think is really important to the character as well. And like, I would love to know everybody's take on that if you have been familiar with it or if it was new to you. This whole idea that, and I don't know a better way to put it, but running the fucking night is his business. And that is why Moon Knight sits in that suit so frequently. He has that look of authority. It creates a contextualization that he is a businessman. It makes us understand that he is here to play a role, which is also in line with his acting past, right? So I feel like in many ways, there's sort of an iconoclastic value to every performative role that Moon Knight plays in his design role, right? And I think that that's one of the things that the better runs have played against, the idea of the simpler his costume gets, to the point where it's fucking clothing with the hood, right? There really is a transformative element of he is not just Mark Spector, who is this superhero. He is an avatar for godhood, and that is who he is. And it's actually a really powerful but very subtle difference that somebody like a Batman can't achieve by also being Bruce Wayne, a guy who doesn't frequently live in a cowl.
So I have a question because I'm not sure of it, and it seemed like with the DID this is what it is. But like when he's in the more superheroic costume, he's always referred to as Moon Knight, and when he's in the business attire, which is fucking amazing, oh my god, like that really sleek white suit is oh my god. But they always refer to him as Mr. Knight. Is that a different aspect of his personality? As in the white business suit, is he always going to be referred to as Mr. Knight? Because that's the way they seem to do it in this book.
That's from one of the previous runs. I always understood it that Moon Knight and Mr. Knight are the same personality, just playing a role.
Same. It kind of plays into the fact that they're both sides of an actor.
Okay.
Yeah. But say Stephen Grant, who is a movie producer, and Jake Lockley, who is a taxi driver, and Mark Spector, who is a mercenary, those are all different personalities. And in the Lemire run, he had another personality where he was a space pilot as well.
Yeah.
So
See, I read the Lemire run, so that's why I was kind of like a lot of it, and that's why I'm like, oh, okay, this is different.
Oh, that makes sense. It's all about his faith again, obviously, but he's like trying to put his faith into his own, like he's becoming his own, like savior at this point. Do we think he's going to get maybe another personality once his faith gets tested again? Like once his faith gets broken even in himself, you think he'll maybe develop another personality to try to cope?
I think the question becomes whether or not we take the interpretation of a disability as a plot device as something that is attractive, right? If Marvel believes they can execute this with a deftness, they may go for it. I'm inclined to believe that we're more likely to see a solidifying of the personas and kind of perhaps a cleaning up of it so that it no longer is superhero identity disorder, superpower, super guy, and perhaps a little bit more of a linear take on it. I wouldn't hate if it was handled with a gentle delicacy, something where I could trust the finest fine points not to be carelessly slopped on, sure. But I do think that we are entering an age where you need to be very careful about the way you portray characters who historically have had mental disorder, because we've so frequently misportrayed them that grounding them now becomes tricky.
Yeah.
That was always something about his character that worried me because I've seen how poorly they've handled Aurora's DID. I think what they did with Legion to make it just an aspect of his power, because it's wildly inconsistent with what real sufferers of DID have. I think it's something that scares me for them to touch upon it too much, because it does become a really bad and cheesy plot device when they do it wrong.
I do like how they've recently done Typhoid Mary's disorder. Like they've kind of, had her get a little bit of help in the Daredevil run and kind of just like find her place and like admit that she, needs help. Jed McKay is good about writing more touchy, sensitive issues, and like Black Cat and all those other stories he's written. So, and I like that even in this first issue, we find out all about Moon Knight, not just with him talking to us, but because he's talking to a therapist. And I feel like that's a good grounding step. You know, they even bring it up. She's like, I can help you with your disorder, but with that superhero thing and the god messing with your mind, that's the bigger issue. Like we're not making the biggest issue his disorder. We're doing it the superhero thing because that's actually more dangerous and that's something you can't really treat. So I like how they aren't saying like, you know, the disorder is hindering you from life. No, like you can live with that, you can work with it. It's, you know, it's an everyday thing because everyone has some type of disorder, but like that's not going to hinder you from life. And I think that's what they were basically saying, and I like that. They kind of put it in the background where it's not his whole thing, it's his disorder. You know, it's just a thing that he has, but that's not his whole prospect as a character, and it shouldn't just define him.
One thing I hope both this comic and the show does is not really leaning to the whole evil psychiatrist thing, because not because it's not interesting or not, but it's maybe sort of boring, because we've already had many stories about Moon Knight facing off with the evil hospital system or whatever. So maybe not do that and make the whole mental health issues. I don't know. I hope they don't do that. And I really like how Jed wrote the psychiatrist here.
Yeah, I definitely agree, John. I love that. I mean, like, yeah, I don't want the scary psychiatrist anymore because people already have worries enough to go into psychiatrists. Let's paint them in a good light, whatever book we have. Like, let's.
That was one of the things I really love about what they're doing with this book. They actually, like, I've been a big proponent that like superheroes need to go to therapists and psychiatrists a lot more often because they're in really stressful situations and there's
Yes.
a lot of issues that are coming up with it. And I know he already actually has a mental disorder, but I would love to see a lot more superheroes go to it because we really need to normalize it. And an evil psychiatrist is not going to help that.
No. I feel like it was a really good stand for them to be like, hey, the Avengers appointed this therapist to you. I'm like, that's really cool because we've never seen, or at least I don't think recently, never seen the Avengers appoint a therapist to someone that recently attacked them instead of just like throwing them in like some kind of
The
jail or
raft
something.
yeah.
Yeah, like they're actually like, hey, you
Yeah, I don't
need
think
help.
there's counseling in the raft.
I don't think so.
No, and if there is, it's fucking Moonstone, and we're all doomed. But I really do appreciate that for a comic that kind of had to say to me, look at the giant hammer. I am going to Bugs Bunny style smash you in the head with the hammer so you know the character. For a book that had to do that to me, for a character I've read a trillion times, this was actually a really painless kind of 3 or 4 page introduction, more in line with the Marvel Now, the Marvel Legacy primers. I felt like this was a pretty fast download. Like as a reader, I did hit, oh my God, let me guess. You're going to tell me all about yep, there's him dying. Got it. And like, I know that's par and parcel for a number one, but for a guy who's tired of reading that, every number one for Moon Knight, who has had like Batman levels of number ones, just every couple of years, they just have to, whereas Batman, they just run 19 Bat books. This, they just reboot 19 times every 10 years. So, for a guy who's really tired of reading that introduction to the character, this was pretty painless.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree. I agree.
yeah, I agree as well. I'll say, Jed McKay writes good characters, and that's why I was excited for Moon Knight because I mean, he reintroduced Black Cat to everyone, and he didn't do it painfully because people know who Black Cat is. She's been around for years, but he introduced her not just as like Spider-Man's kind of sidekick side chick situation. She was more than that.
So much more than.
So much more. She's evolved so much more than that, and I feel like Moon Knight's evolved more than that too. I do like how in the beginning of this issue, and let me know what y'all thought about it, is we get the first like villains he's facing is vampires, and I feel like that sets the pace of like what he is really facing. Like he is the supernatural hunter basically, like, well, anything at night, like muggers and all of that, like the basic things as well, but he's like, I get the things that like crawl in the night. And
I'm sorry,
like,
hold on, pause.
But it's
I'm
not
so
any
sorry.
vampires.
But please raise your hand if you have felt personally victimized by Marvel's overuse of vampires in the last 5 years.
Me. But I love Reese though. I love Reese. Oh my God, Reese is amazing, and I want Reese to be everywhere.
These are the best vampires, Nico.
I'll even give you that. But
because
like,
they're basically multi-level marketing vampires. That was really funny.
So the other day we realized why there are vampires in Wolverine when we're all kind of like, why are there vampires in Wolverine? Well, it's because what is Wolverine best at? Killing. And what can't he do anymore? Kill humans. So he can only face off against robots and vampires. That's just about it. So
I mean, he also has a little bit of a history with vampires too, in like the 80s and that.
Absolutely. But even then, so like Storm does too. And like, we're not bogging Storm down in a solo title full of vampires.
They better
And,
not.
and
Yeah,
speaking
actually,
of Aaron,
yeah, they should, but in other world.
yeah, they should do it with like space vampires and the other world
No,
vampires.
the ones from Ten of Swords.
Yeah. Oh, I want all of that. I want lots of vampires.
I mean,
but not these.
I
Make up your mind, Nico. No, I'm just kidding.
I do feel like vampires really fit in this though. Like for like a Moon Knight, it's like, oh yeah, duh. It's like vampires being in Blade, obviously. So I feel like it's, it's street level. He's trying to help his town because vampires are all street level basically. And I feel like it's a really good intro of who the character is and how he, it's part of his, like, I guess religion. Technically, they said in this book that he should kill like all the vampires and all the things that bump in the night.
But then why Judeo-Christian Eastern European vampires? If we're dealing with a super cool Egyptian Jewish hybrid character, if we're dealing with a book that is trying to single-handedly solve the crisis in the Middle East 22 pages at a time, then why aren't we seeing some sort of Egyptian interpretation of a vampire?
Well, I think that's because vampires are not really the focus villains of this series.
Yeah.
And we have two antagonists. We have the Doctor, who's the Hunter's Moon at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And we have when Mark and Reese are drinking coffee together, there's someone watching him from a window.
Mysterious man.
Yeah, and so I think the vampires were just like set dressing, a side dish.
You know what it kind of set it up as? Like, to me, it set his personality to be like, it's a little throwaway thing. Yeah, we introduced Reese with it, but like, it set his personality up to be kind of like Elsa Bloodstone, right? Where Elsa's out there, she's a monster hunter, but like, she sees something that you're not really a monster, she's not gonna kill you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like,
and we have to think that Moon Knight was introduced in Werewolf by Night, so werewolves and Moon Knight,
Oh, okay.
We
Nice
know
little
that he's
horror
gonna
blood
be-
connection.
we know he's gonna be involved with supernatural creatures of all kinds.
And that's just like the crew he hangs out with, like Blade and Ghost Rider, and the Spirits of Vengeance and all that. Like,
What's so funny is Blade and Ghost Rider are in Avengers now for so long that somehow I forgot that they used to be monster level characters. And you guys are so totally right. But I just like Mandala affected myself into just, oh no, these guys are Avengers level. It's like, I don't remember Luke Cage not being Avengers level. Yeah, no, Heroes for Hire. Please don't get me wrong. And I'm a huge Daredevil fan. So like, I grew up thinking Luke Cage was damn hot. But like, I could not, once he became an Avenger, I'm like, no, Luke Cage is Avengers level. What the fuck are you talking about? And like, yeah, you're totally right. The horror vibe really, yeah, it's a really nice touch back to the horror vibe. And I hadn't thought of it that way because I just didn't feel like it read like a horror book. And Moon Knight so frequently does read like a horror book.
I feel like you have to have Moon Knight be a horror book because he does things at night. He's the the Dark Knight. I hate to say it, but
He's the light knight.
He's the light knight. He's a light bright. So
light bright. I'm sorry.
You clap 2 times and he appears. But
On.
I do love that we get a random 8-ball villain because I didn't even know he still existed. And he's like, I just don't skin my face off. I'm not a connoisseur of Moon Knight, unfortunately. I need to read more. But has he peeled someone's face off before?
I mean, he gets pretty vengeance-y of the night shall be mine, chop, chop, kill, good, stab, bad. He does very much get that sort of very, angst. It's angst. He's a white guy masquerading as an African hero. And so he gets angsty, and Khonshu is not always the nicest guy. Khonshu sucks. Khonshu always sucks. And even if Hunter's Moon is the bad guy of the arc, there's still something else up Khonshu's sleeve. And I don't believe that for a moment there isn't. So there really are enough villains running around this book that the vampire shouldn't have bugged me. And I'm glad we all talked that out. I feel whole now.
I'm glad we were able to help Nico. This was all this was about, to help Nico get through his vampire disappointment.
But Reese is awesome, though. Don't kill
Reese.
Reese.
No, Reese is awesome, and then the doctor is awesome. Like I'm glad, and I don't know about I don't know if the therapist is a person of color. I can't tell if she's white or not. But I'm glad that we are getting, these different characters of color around Moon Knight, and it's not just nothing but white characters. Like I'm glad that they, they're acknowledging that, not just white vampires exist, and we were getting this culture of different kind of people in this book. Because Moon Knight, I feel obviously he's a white dude, but he is, kind of worldly since he is, of the Egyptian god and all of this and all of that. So it's like, yeah, we need some like different kind of cultures in this book, and not just a white guy trying to be like an Egyptian. So that I feel like that's a good move.
I'm gonna say that he did cut someone's face off, but not as Moon Knight, but as Mark Spector, mercenary, probably
Oh.
Well,
like
see,
in the past.
that's why he said he was a bad man doing bad things, because that's
Yeah,
not a,
I mean,
that's not a nice thing.
so
No, that's
so
not
Mark,
it.
yeah, Rod, Mark was, I mean, from the Lemieux run, he joined the army, and when he was discharged, he became a mercenary in Africa for a little bit. Well, and then that's when he died and became Moon Knight. So I'm gonna say he did very many awful things during that time that we haven't seen.
Yeah. Speaking of things that aren't awful, but they show him doing kind of, he doesn't do too much awful things, but I feel like Alessandro and Rochelle work spectacular for this book, and I feel like they're made to draw Moon Knight, because I felt like I was just watching it like move off the page, the way the splash pages, the attention to detail, like the facial expressions were all on key, and I love that the shading on the people of color was correct as well, and I really appreciate that. I feel like you don't have to get applause for that, but I do want to have that attention to detail. It was right. The shading was right, and I always want to put that up front. That is, I'm glad they got that right. But I was really impressed. We saw previews of this book, and I already knew it was going to be beautiful. But while I was reading this, I just couldn't. I had to take a second just to look at pages again, because it's so pretty. Him just flowing through the city with his moon-shaped cape is just spectacular.
The art was amazing. There's like so many glam shots, that like 2-page spread of him, and it's just like they're so good. Like almost there's a whole bunch of them. I also thought the art in this issue was like so good.
Well, and that's kind of the thing about Moon Knight. It really is a book where the art has to be explicitly excellent. Because we all recognize Moon Knight by his visuals, anything less than the most eye catching visuals fail the character. When you've got Greg Smallwood, when you've got Declan Shalvey, whose name I can never say right, Declan Shalvey, when you have artists like, right after the top of his game doing work on things like Daredevil and filling in on New Avengers, you had Alex Maleev come in and do a run. Now, that run is probably my least favorite due to a problematic trope of, fridging women, but that's another conversation for another day. You have Jerome Opeña. You have so many enormously talented artists in the history of the character that if you don't provide somebody who is capable of this upper level execution, it's immediately going to show that the thing you know this character for best, Big Moon Cape, doesn't work.
I think something that really worked for me, besides the pencils, were the colors, and as Rod said, the people's skin tones worked very well. But most importantly, like for Moon Knight, just for him, is that the contrast between the dark and his white suit was spectacular. All the spreads, and in the office, and was out talking with the psychiatrist. I think it worked really well how the light came off of his suit. And yeah, if that didn't work, the whole story would, nobody would like it that much, because the whole thing about Moonlight is white in a sea of black, right?
Yeah, as corny as it is, he like that is like his thing, is that he wants to be seen, and so like if you have kind of shitty art with that, then it's like, but like it's kind of contradictory.
I think my favorite like sequence, like art and story in this whole book, is starting with page 13, where the little old lady comes into his office and she's like, "They're trying to take us away at night," and then you go into the next page and it's this full out horror look where Vermin and his clones are taking on Moon Knight, and just like the difference in the art, the difference in the colors, everything works. And then when you get to the end, he's like, I took out one of you because you took one of my people, but like you have a choice, and what choice are you gonna?
Yeah, like how he fades into black as he gets more threatening, and you just see the whites of his eyes and the moon. That's really cool.
And I feel like my favorite part of that whole sequence, the whole book maybe, is more facetious. Favorite part is like I'm not Superman. Oh my god, I'm not Spider Man. I'm Moon Knight and I don't die. And I was like, yes, you're not Spider Man because you're awesome. Well, Spider Man's awesome too, no shade. But like Moon Knight is a badass and he like really takes care of the villains, which is probably not the best thing to do sometimes, but still.
No, I like that line about him not dying because in the Shelby, Valera, and the other guys run, there's a line that Mark says to someone that I died once and it was boring, so I came back. And I think that line defines him as a character, and you really feel that in that fight. Just wanted like a little parenthesis.
And to jump back a second to the color conversation, one of the things that you guys keep pointing out is how much you love the stark contrast of the white on black. And the way that is achieved is such a symbiotic relationship between the inker and the colorist, right? The inker has to know to use less deep, heavy, severe black in some places so that when black is used to contrast with the white, the black pops more. The same thing then has to be done with the whites. You can never get too close to a clean white. I mean, you have to use varying shades so that when you do use such a crisp white to pop off the page at that level, there's nothing around it that contrasts it. So it really is an incredible dance between the scripting, laying out where those moments should pop, the penciler making sure that they stay in context for the next two layers of work, even though that's not his part of the work.
I think it's the same inker as the artist. I don't have inkers on the credits.
That's a really good point. So that's also the truth of Marvel these days, whereas it's still so much the inker, but then it's still the same thing where it's, the inker slash penciler working so extensively with Rochelle Rosenberg to get that perfect symmetry of depth of blacks and lightness of whites that allows for the contrast to transport you somewhere else. It's almost otherworldly because he's so white with such crisp black starkness. And that sense of chiaroscuro is one of the things that highlights the dichotomy of Moon Knight's self as well. And I think that's part of why the imagery works so well for us. It's so stark no matter what.
I mean, I definitely agree. I love that art 101 we just got from Nico and John. Thank you so much. I was like just sitting here like, ooh, I'm
It was
learning.
actually fascinating. I love that history lesson.
It was
Well,
really
because-
fascinating.
Yeah, we even really do have it. There's the page where he's talking to the guy with the glasses who is wearing
The
a white.
doctor. Is it Dr. Vader? Dr. Bader?
Dr.
How do you say-
Secret Bad Guy.
And he
Yeah.
is wearing a white vest.
Dr. Hottie Pants.
But Moon Knight is also wearing white, but his white is whiter than the white vest, and the white vest has like a lot more shading, and the parts that aren't shaded, the white is still always lighter, like you said, Nico, to Moon Knight. So on the page, Moon Knight has to be the whitest thing, even if another character has white on them. That white can't be as white as Moon Knight.
This way,
'Cause-
Moon Knight is otherworldly. Yep.
Exactly.
Because he's shiny. He's shiny like the moon. Jed McKay is known for in his series that he's done so far in bringing a lot of guest appearances from the characters past or just characters that we know. He's done that a lot in Black Cat. Who would y'all, if you could pick one character to show up in this series, who would y'all want to guest star?
I think for me, part of the problem is Moon Knight's crisis is never of other. His crisis is always of self. Even when his struggles and conflicts are struggles of other, they are still conflicts of self. And Moon Knight has been to Paris and he's been to Rome, but he's never been
Never
to him.
been to me.
Exactly. So I really want to see Moon Knight have a chance to work with himself. And for that, I think he could use the help of a top tier, either psychic or magician. And I think Nico of the Runaways would be a pretty cool character to
Ooh.
see kind of spread her wings throughout the Marvel Universe and find herself in some new places. I'm not up to date on the events of Runaways, but I feel like we could maybe find a way to have her character guest spot in a high profile book in a way that's positive female, Asian, queer representation.
I would say that would be a little difficult with how Runaways is right now, but
Yeah.
I would love it.
For me, I think it's kind of inevitable that this will happen, but I'm thinking, and it's not one person, the Midnight Suns, so like Doctor Strange, Blade, and Ghost Rider. should be there. Like we said before, that's who, he hangs out with them from time to time. And yeah.
So I know she's already actually set up to guest star, I think in issue 4, Tigra, because they have a history. They are both, and I kind of want to see it like become almost a partnership, because one, I want more Tigra, but two, like they both have this weird connection with their gods or the creature that gives them their powers. I don't know. I just want to see more of Hunter Moon, because like now every time I like see Hunter Moon, I'm going to be singing like Sailor Moon but Hunter Moon in my head. So
Killing Moon Knight, Hunter Moon.
John, who would you want to guest star?
You remember when Spider-Man showed up in Daredevil in about issue 15 or so of the chip run like last year?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that Spider-Man's gonna show up because he also does the same job, and Daredevil does the same job. So I'm hoping those two guys show up. Because also of the Bendis run where with the whole really weird that he believed he was Spider-Man, Cap, and I think it was Wolverine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's gonna be interesting. But I think Daredevil and Spider-Man. I hope they show up.
And you know who nobody fucking said? Echo. And you know why? Because Echo should never be put in a Moon Knight book ever again. Ever. Period.
No, keep
Ever.
the Phoenix away from
Ever.
Moon Knight.
Oh,
Keep
no.
away
That's
from
not
Moon Knight.
why. It's because Bendis went ahead and fridged Echo in the pages of
right.
Moon Knight, and she had to be returned in the pages of Daredevil almost a decade later.
Oh, I didn't even think about
wow.
that. I'm just thinking about the last Fist of Khonshu
Oh, no.
and like
I'm still pretty angry that Moon Knight was used as a vehicle to kill a woman to further a white man's story.
I did not know that.
A disabled
know that
woman of
either.
color, and they did it. I'm going to get too angry. I'm going to calm down.
Well, I did not know that, but I'm assuming she won't show up because she is the Phoenix now. So it's a too high caliber for Moon Knight. I mean, he did just have that run where he kind of took the Phoenix, but
he took the Phoenix. Keep me away from him.
Yeah. So he's downgraded now. He's back to his level. I forgot that Tigra. I did see the solicits, and I forgot that Tigra or Tigra.
Yeah, I call her Tigra, like Tiger,
It's
but with
Tigra. I've heard it so many different ways that I'm just like, I'll just pick whichever one today I want.
Okay, Tigra. Yeah, I do like that she does answer to a different god as well. And speaking of people that answer to kind of like different gods and get their powers, I think Snowbird has that as well, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Snowbird is half god.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like him dealing with other like godlike characters or in that kind of aspect, since this has started off with such like a religious aspect, and then we're getting Hunter's Moon, who is also trying to do like better for his god because the other disciple, quote unquote, isn't doing well. I feel like mixing other religious type deities together to help Moon Knight or find clarity in what he's doing would be very interesting.
Oh, now you've got me really wanting. So like way back in the original Alpha Flight, I think it's like issue 8, they had like a issue where Snowbird was fighting in the snow, and it was like almost like all white.
all white.
Issue.
Yeah.
So that, like now I want Moon Knight
keep up with
issue.
his page. I mean, Moon Knight's done it. It's been done before, where it's essentially white pages with outlines. It's been done.
Yeah, we could do it again. These artists, they're already fantastic. I want to see their take on that.
I only meant there's precedent. Precedent.
Hey guys, if you like that cut from X's4 Podcast, you'll be sure to like some of our other materials. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out these other amazing videos here at X's4 Podcast.